Do you have the recording going, Blair?
Just doing that now. It should be up and going
All right.
right this second.
Do you have the recording going, Blair?
Just doing that now. Should be up and going
All right.
right this second. There we go. Yes, and I heard myself.
Okay. So Brent is here. How do you feel about getting going?
I'm good.
All right. Cameron, welcome. Cameron is Christy. Welcome, welcome. Cameron is not Christy. Cameron is Cameron. Okay. Welcome, Cameron. All right, we'll get started here. A couple of announcements. The next 5-day business challenge is from April 7th to the 11th. It is from 10 to 11 Mountain Time, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time. That would make it 12 to 1 Eastern Time. There's a VIP session directly afterwards for questions and personal coaching, which follows the hour there. Thank you, thank you. So that follows the hour. There is a link. Could you put that in for people to sign up? There it is. So there is a link for people to sign up to the next 5-day business challenge if you are interested in that. Blair also has insider notes for each episode going back to episode 318. You can, for $25 a month, get all the information from the past episodes 318 forward, as well as the notes, which is more of an in-depth discussion into whatever it is we talk about every week. So for $300 a year or $25 a month, all the historical and ongoing notes are yours. So with that, my name is Patty. Welcome to the 336th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of Mind Models. My name is Patty. I'm a certified Mind Model Method coach and your co-host tonight, along with certified Mind Model Method coaches Tim and Becky Graff. Personally, my models helped me overcome more than a decade of depression. They have positively impacted every area of my life, including my relationship with myself. The BDE, or the Blair Dunkley Experience, is Blair's free gift to you and is an opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe, real-world environment. So we look forward to learning with you tonight and welcome you to the BDE. With that, Tim, I'm going to hand it over to you. You want to do leftovers and then the new material?
Yeah, so all of you that have been here, and you might remember that last week we went over process and more specifically building a personal process and where that personal process came from, whether that was through watching your parents as you grew up or creating habit patterns over the years as you've gone and done these various things throughout your life. We talked a bit about these processes and where they came from. And Becky actually left a little bit of a homework assignment that she challenged everybody to last week. And it was basically to, as you're going through your week this past week, to kind of look at how you interpret different situations. Do you seek for meaning in them? Do you blame yourself? Do you stay objective? Also, questions on how you move through your emotions. Do you suppress your emotions? Do you express them? Do you process them gradually? How do you make decisions as you go throughout your week? Is it more of a gut feeling? Is it a logical breakdown? External inputs help feed that. Another question was how you respond to changes in your stress. Do you avoid them? Do you take action? Is there reflection, resilience, just as some examples? And then also your habitual coping mechanisms. What are some of those habits that we do, like maybe journaling or talking, exercising? Do you distract yourself? But Becky kind of asked some of these questions last week at the end to kind of pay attention to this week. And so I wanted to check in and see if anybody did a little bit of that homework or paid attention. Okay, Christy, awesome. Do you mind sharing?
Of course. So honestly, since starting Mind Models clear back in the day, I've really noticed lots of things. Sometimes it used to take a little bit longer, but I've really picked up on and been able to recognize things. Um, I don't know if I want to say quicker or what, but Saturday I was having a day. I don't know. It was a woe is me, a pity day, all the things. I was just, I don't know, just my mind was going 100 miles an hour. I'm so excited about becoming a coach, but yet I was doing but how am I going to do that living in the middle of this? I mean, I was all over the place. And then I had watched some videos of Blair's through some other training that we're doing, and I recall a story that he shared about when his dad was in a coma and then he had lost his dad and he allowed himself to be in that space for a couple hours and he was super pissed because he couldn't stay there because he knew how to get out of there. So Saturday, I had one of those, dang it, I cannot stay here because I know how to get out of this spot. So it kind of made me frustrated because I wanted to cry a little bit, which I did, but I mean and then I'm like, okay, knock it off, you know better. Time to regroup and start over. So
It pisses me off that I developed
it
those
did
skills.
me too.
It really pisses me off because I know how to do that. I hate that
Yeah.
shit.
I know.
And I love it at the same time. Don't get me wrong. I love it
Yeah.
too. But it's this huge love-hate relationship with that.
Yeah. I was like, well, I can totally relate to how you felt about that because dang it, I can't stay here. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah.
and I journal a lot. I journal a lot. So
Okay. Have you found that journaling to be an effective process, something that helps when you're
yeah, because it's something that sometimes my stories get very winded. And so when I try to communicate and say things, then I get all over the place. And sometimes I don't get really what I'm thinking or whatever done. So when I'm journaling, and I also lived in a world where if I don't talk about it, it didn't happen. So this way, if I journal it, I write it down, I notice, I'm able to evaluate what I've said and really get my thoughts on paper. And then it's almost like it's easier for me to share because then I'm like reading from it and have pinpoints or bullet proofs. Or sometimes I want to like, okay, this wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was, so I can skip over that. Or I really want to make sure I go over this. So journaling does really help me.
I love that you've shared that. That's actually it sounds like a very powerful process, being able to externalize it onto paper and seeing that process flow as it's coming from your mind, being printed out basically, whether you type it out or write it out. And then to your point, like being able to see that process in flow then either helps you externalize it verbally if need be,
Yes.
or go, okay, maybe that wasn't as big an issue or whatever is it needed to be. So I love that. That's awesome. That's sounds like a very effective process. And I love the awareness that you had too about um, just that
So
I
mad.
know better now. I ain't stuck here. I remember right after a very similar experience. One of the things that, as we've gone through different situations and stuff that's come up for us as well, there is, and I've actually shared this before on previous Blair Dunkley experiences, but there is a power in just the awareness that now I have these skills. Now I'm aware. And so just the fact that you're aware, not even necessarily before you do anything, action wise or not do something, but just that awareness is powerful because now it's like, okay, I know where I'm at. Do I want to do something about it? Am I going to allow myself to be here? Like there is a power in just the awareness notice process, which we spoke to the Ananpu, last week, that awareness notice, and then the process to understanding. There is so much power in the awareness to notice. So
Crazy.
really
Yeah.
cool.
So beneficial.
By the way, Tim,
Yes.
we have Brown Underground and Cameron seem to be brand new people here,
Okay.
so they probably do. Oh, thank you so much, Jane. Awareness, notice, process, understanding. I just said, would you mind just sharing your Ananpu analogy? And thank you, Jane, for putting that down.
Yeah, so Ananpu,
And oh, sorry, Jane, not Shane. But anyway, Shane, your hand was up.
Yeah, I didn't know if we got a couple brand new people in here. If you want to just kind of give a whole, a general what the BD experience is about, a little bit about the mind models, etc. Maybe.
Yeah, would you like to do that, please, sir?
Oh, you want me to do this?
Yeah, might as well. It's a good practice. You're a coach.
Well done, Shane.
I love it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Welcome, Cameron. That's either Brown Underground is Christy and I's best friend, Matt, and Carolee Brown. I don't know if it's Matt or Carolee, but anyway. So welcome to BDE. This is a weekly Zoom that Blair does. Blair's a creator of mind models, has extensive background, 30 years roughly.
Try 49, soon to be 50.
Well, okay then.
1976.
So almost 50 years of creating these with the Life Skills College in Canada. The place where the Cobra chickens come from.
Yep.
Anyway, sorry, getting off track. But so he's created these mind models, and it's just rewiring our mind to not what to think, but how to think. And just it took me a little while to get used to this, but we really try to refrain from why, because it puts people in a past why loop, and it also comes across as could be guards up, reasons, justifications, excuses, rationalization.
Yeah, perfect.
So anyway, there's a whole bunch of mind model stacks, mind models in general, but they're just little things that we'll talk about, like the Ananpu. There's the 3 E's. There's control versus influence. There's clarity versus certainty. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them that we can talk about. And if you guys have questions, you can unmic or even just reach out in the chat. So with that, Blair's the creator. Tim and Becky are certified coaches. Patty's a certified coach. Brent, Christy, and I are going through the process. So welcome.
And I'm going to actually pop in the chat a link to a free gift for you guys that are new, that will go over a little bit more about the 3 E's that Shane just mentioned. If you want to go ahead and click on that link, it'll get you a resource to help fill in some gaps or give you some additional insights on some of the things we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, so you can grab that link, and as Becky mentioned, it basically, those are kind of the, I don't want to say foundational, but they're one of the most effective, simple mind models to kind of start with. And they're a great place to kind of get your feet wet with what these mind models are, what they do. And the mind models are basically thought structures that get us into action. They're behavioral methodologies. As opposed to one of the realizations that Blair had early in life was that mindset doesn't work. Just that kind of that think and be, and knowing what to do is great. And it's a great place to start, but it's really about how you do something, not the what to do, but the how to do it, and getting yourself into action. And as we've been talking about these last 2 weeks of process, it's really about doing something, changing habit patterns, being aware. And as that Ananpu, as we mentioned, Ananpu is basically first you notice something, so you're aware of something. So first you have an awareness, and then that process moves to you notice that you're aware. As Christy just kind of talked through, she had an awareness of something, and now she's noticed that she's aware of it. So now and now with learning the mind model, she has a process that she can go to that then leads to an understanding, and she actually has a behavioral process to move herself forward. And so the Ananpu, as we call it for short, is the awareness, the notice, the process of the doing something, and then to understanding. So that's just one of the mind models that we do speak to quite a bit here on the Blair Dunkley experience. And we actually talked a lot about it last week as we jumped into process. I wanted to check in with Leslie really quick. I was curious, Leslie, did you have with the kind of the homework that we've been talking about, did you have any awarenesses or anything that you noticed over the last week with your process that jumped out?
More that I've been focusing on doing it. I've recently developed my process and I've been working with it. And it is proving beneficial in focusing and in doing the trading. And it's helping. It's really helping.
Awesome. So it's just the awareness of the process that you're actually going through when you trade.
Yes. I'm doing a lot of journaling as well.
Mm-hmm.
Both on during these Tuesday evening events, but while trading, I have a separate journal, and I'm virtually writing down everything that I am doing, including emotions, because yeah, it's helpful to track that, especially if there's been a slight loss. Maybe some of those losses have not been so slight, but working through them and getting to a place where I can transition and just keep moving forward, keep building on the knowledge I've learned, the skills that I'm building. Keep moving forward.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Leslie, for sharing. Brent, as you have been going through IBC, I know you're part of the Igniting the Buying conversation, which is one of the programs Blair's doing right now. You're a part of that. And as you've gone through your week, have you noticed anything in your process that was a big awareness or notice?
Oh, not necessarily anything new. Maybe just haven't paid attention this week, but I would say, like it's very stressful this past couple of weeks. There's a lot going on, with the two different courses and studying and trying to learn it. So the stress and challenges new, and then coping with that. So a lot of times I will sit, I'll isolate myself, usually, when that happens,
Okay.
work through it. Like if it's a lot of stuff going on, it's yeah, it's almost as if just to get away from things, anything else that comes in, like external that comes in, just to keep it to a minimum. But I did notice that sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's not effective. For going forward, to just ignore things. If it gets too much, I'll just like stop doing all of it, just because it's so much. So I just like get rid of everything, just so it comes back down. So that's not really that effective to do so. So I'm not evaluating. I'm just stopping everything. So I'm not evaluating what's working, what's not, what's a priority to focus on one thing. It's just eliminate everything. So that way I can get rid of it and then get back and then go back to it. So yeah.
I was going to say, with that process of so
Mhm.
to speak, stopping everything, do you find in that moment where you're not doing anything that you actually recharge? Or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes it's for that because it's so much. So I just need a break from it just to get back to it. But there are times it's just like when it extends, instead of just like a day or two, just for a brief, just to recharge, it will extend. I'll just extend it longer for like a week or so. That gets it, really ineffective because I'm not going anywhere. I'm not making any progress or evaluating, getting back to the work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I can really
getting
relate.
comfortable and not like doing anything. Just like, all right, this is great. I don't have anything.
I can relate to that, Brent. It's
Mhm.
it's a break in the uncomfortable, and yet it turns into a distraction piece.
Mhm.
I'm curious, has anybody else, I see some heads nodding, has anybody else ever experienced something like that? Where you've been doing something and then you're like, I'm gonna do this instead because this is a little bit less heavy or a little bit less brain power, those kinds of things. Shane?
Are you making fun of my squirrelness?
I'm not
Like,
making fun of anything. Now that you brought it up, I'm curious though. Would you like to care to elaborate on that?
oh, I chase shiny objects. I'm like a little blue healer. Like something will be going on, then all of a sudden, yeah, gotta go. Yeah, that's gotta be, yeah, yeah. I've told you before, there's like 7 or 8 different personalities in there, and it just depends on who's the loudest of what chore gets done. Yeah.
Well, the great thing
Oh,
about
friend.
Well, I love the awareness though. I love the
Yeah.
awareness that Shane has and that Brent has that, like, for example, Brent, taking those moments to step back and, to have a moment away from everything and to recharge. But he has to be careful with it because if he lets it go too far, then he's aware that and he's noticing that he is ineffective because he's allowing it, to take too long before he gets back after it. And, it sounds like you're pretty well aware that you chase shiny penny.
Yeah.
And
Brent, do you find
what's that, Shane? Go for it.
Brent, do you find like even if you don't have anything scheduled for the day, like I mean we don't have that. Like that's not in our calendar, but like if you don't have anything scheduled for the next day, can you sleep in at all? Or do you just like all of a sudden, oh, I got I I got stuff to do.
Usually I will get to stay with a pattern, so that way it's
Yeah.
habitual. If I'm getting up at a specific time, so that way it's normal for me.
Mhm.
But there are times where it's like, man, if I take that break the next day, I will mentally like I have nothing to do, and there are times I will sleep through the alarm. I will get up later, like yeah, it's great. So I was like, if I got like not it's not planned to do anything in the morning,
Yeah.
like I need some more relaxed time. So I will take my time getting up in the day, but I like the consistency of getting up at a specific time. And I like getting my things done early. Like if I have to go out and do
Yeah.
things, I like it done early. So
Yeah. I can't even sleep in on vacation. Like I'm just wide awake. Got things to do.
Well, so this conversation is actually great, and it's a perfect segue into what we wanted to discuss this week. Last week we talked about processes, kind of where they came from. This week, wanted to dive into kind of and we actually spoke a little bit to this last week, but the subconscious. Often our processes are subconscious. But power, and what we've been speaking to here, the power and that leverageability comes when we intentionally make things identifiable, duplicatable, and repeatable. And that's actually where the power of these mind models comes in, is they are those sticky behaviors that are in us. We just a lot of times aren't aware of them. And until we become familiar with how to shift those behavior and habit patterns with things like the mind models that are identifiable, duplicatable, and repeatable, then we get leverage. Then, as Christy shared so well at the beginning of this, then we're aware, and then we can really do something. And that is power, and that is where the leverage really comes from, in taking control of our lives and really getting uh, more effective with our process. So I have a question. If you're feeling stuck, frustrated, and overwhelmed, what might this indicate? Brent, you look very thoughtful.
yeah, I was thinking back because I read the notes earlier today, but I was trying to picture what was going through. But stuck, frustrated, and overwhelmed. I would just like ineffective process and not being able to identify that process and evaluate that. And it very well may be ineffective because you're exhibiting those emotions, those feelings.
Any other thoughts, Shane?
I was just trying to think back. I mean, I don't know that. I mean, feeling stuck, frustrated, overwhelmed. I just it definitely goes back to what I always try to just keep busy when I get like that, and if it eats at me long enough, I'll talk to Christy, and it don't have to eat very long anymore. But if I'm frustrated with cows or whatever else I'm doing outside, it just Christy can read my face like a book. I came in tonight. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Well, cows are being stupid. Weather's changing. We're gonna have a blizzard. The wind stinks." And she's like, "What might you do about that?" Yeah, what might you do about that? And I didn't, but I thought, "Don't you blare me." But no, I mean, and speaking to Chrissy on, about how she felt on Saturday, it's just the awareness that you can, in my word, the awareness, and you have the power of choice. You can choose to live that way. You can choose to live in that stuck state. You can choose that. And the great thing about these mind models is that they give you tools to, I recognize it. This is what I'm going to do about it. And then I do it.
And it doesn't really have to be any more complicated than that, does
Right.
it? But when you have the tools, you have the speed of clarity. So clarity provides access to action. And when you have the clarity, because you have the mind models, life doesn't have to stay the way that it is. Such a cool thing. Anyway, it may take time to unwind things because life moves at its own pace, but you know the direction you're going in and you know the problems you're facing. Well, and then when you work through this, you can identify the problems and you have the mind models. All of a sudden, those problems evaporate into situations that just aren't resolved yet. And you don't feel as heavy because you don't have problems. You do have situations, and most people are prepared to take action on situations than sit around trying to figure out the problem. Because when you have the mind models, you can test your resourcefulness and find out, hey, I know how to resolve this. I know how to get resourceful. And all I have is a situation that I have to work through. That's it. It's about shortening up time. That's what it's always about. Just shortening up time. Go for it, Christy.
I'll add that I have found mind models being so behaviorally based that I get stuck. Well, I used to get stuck in my lists. Like
Yeah.
I thought if I had a page and a half of lists, I was going to feel accomplished for the day. And then it would come to the point where I would get 0 of those things done. And so then I would be in that stuck, like I made the list. So, that was evidently not effective for me. So again, in the trainings that I've learned and saw, making the list is great, but then I need to basically go through and find 3 top ones that I want to accomplish and get those done, and then reevaluate my list, move somewhere over, and just keep doing that way so that I keep moving forward instead of seeing this list and being overwhelmed by it and like, well, that was great. So that was just another thing that I have found being able to continue my process moving forward is lists are important for me and to do and stay on track, but not so many at one time. I need to go through and these are what I can do today. And then
It's the rule of 3. And list management is so critical because when you overwhelm yourself, you're done. Okay, because you probably won't do anything. Just that simple rule of 3.
Yeah, and just like the question that we were just talking about, if you're feeling stuck, if you're frustrated and in that overwhelm, it's likely because, you know, you have this overwhelming list, but yet you haven't taken any action. And I love that just in the comments, Jackie put inactivity is, you know, what does this indicate? It indicates if you're feeling stuck, frustrated, and overwhelmed, it's usually a lack of its inactivity. It's you actually haven't taken action on something. And she put just below that lack of effective action. Shane, I love what you
And
shared.
then hold it, and then below that she put failing fast, falling
Oh,
forward, the
okay.
4 Fs.
What if I didn't connect with the failing fast, falling forward? Yes. So just taking action regardless, and then at the evaluation after with the failing fast, falling forward is basically just taking action on something instead of getting all up in the judgment of it, just literally testing something and then evaluating after the fact whether it's moving you forward or not. That's the idea behind the failing fast, falling forward, for those of you who may not have heard that term before. But yeah, it's basically just taking action on something. And I love Shane's, you know, what Shane shared is, and whether he realizes it or not, and maybe he does, but he has a process, and his process actually leads to this next question: is your process dependent on things outside of your control? As opposed to taking responsibility or building a process for yourself. And what I heard from Shane was his kind of a two-step process. He takes action on some things, but other things he actually goes to Christy, and Christy helps him get into that action piece. Is that accurate, Shane, or am I kind of putting words in there? Okay. So want to throw that question out to the rest of the group, though. Is your process dependent on things outside of your control? Have you noticed that there are certain processes in your life that are dependent on things outside of yourself? Any thoughts there, Leslie?
Well, when I think of our business of laser scanning and modeling, I certainly rely upon Kevin, our son, to do a lot of the processing work.
Mhm.
Um, he's tried to teach me years ago. I've asked to be taught, and he says, "Don't worry about it." So, in that part of our process, we have of doing our business of laser scanning and modeling. It's very much that, yeah, I'm going out into the field and doing the laser scanning and bringing the data back, and he processes it so that we can create a deliverable. But that's been defined. So yes, it is externally controlled from me, but it's also a team effort in getting things done, getting to a deliverable. You know, there's a lot of things that I do that in the business that he doesn't do. So it's those are resolved issues. So in terms of the question that are external are out of my control, well, yeah, they are, but um, he knows what he has to do and he gets it done when he wants to get it done. He gets it done. You know.
So it's from what I'm hearing, the process seems to be working.
Oh yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And I sit here impatient. I might want to be able to deliver a product a lot sooner than he's able to, but no, it'll be done when it's done. And very much that's the case.
Is there something that you might do to make this process more effective?
No, there isn't actually. The technology, the software that we use and the technology that we're working in is um, it's got a lot of smoke and mirrors. And it doesn't matter what you try to do to improve it. We've maxed out the field aspects of this to the best possible way of field scanning to work on getting to the a registered point cloud and to develop a model. We've, it is what it is.
Well, it sounds like you went through a significant process of evaluation to get to that understanding, which is awesome. So when we're talking about processes, and we have our own processes that we may or may not be, naming and labeling all of or be consciously aware of, but I'm curious what mind model comes to mind if you want to make an adjustment or you want to become more effective in something that you're working on. What mind model either have you used or might you use if you find a breakdown or you want to become more effective with any of the processes that you guys are dealing with?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have been using the 3 E's extensively in going through and when an issue does come up. And it's interesting because I've identified issues and it's not the time right now to resolve the issue. That I've been able to evaluate, but that time will come, and I've already worked through in my mind the process, how I'm going to introduce this to our client to bring it up, to discuss it.
Awesome.
And that has been done without panic, without hair pulling, without screaming, ranting, raving.
It sounds like it's a very effective thing as well.
It has become that way.
Awesome.
And a couple of years ago, that would not have been the case. There might have even been some profanity involved.
Okay.
How about you, Christy? When you think about processes, have you noticed that there's any specific mind models that you like to use or that you might use when you find a breakdown or you want to become more effective?
Well, for sure, name and labeling is like my go-to number one fix all for me a lot of the times. Definitely the 3 E's. And I've really come to love the ask versus tell mind model and the self-other situation. So those seem to be a lot of the ones that I really notice right off the bat when I'm going through something or I need to process something, that I go through those. I mean, I realize it now for sure, that they're more and more obvious for me, but those are the ones that stuck out right away when you asked the question.
How about you, Patty?
I have gone through a transition from, Blair has a mind model we call content versus process, being 2 sides of the same coin. And I, for years and years, just loved my content. I was a learner, still am, but just gathering more and more and more information and going nowhere with it. So not having any action or process to go with my content really held me stuck for quite a while. So now I go through the 3 E's, effective versus ineffective, external versus internal. Is this something that I can, is it externally verifiable or is it just existing in my head? And evaluation versus judgment. Evaluation is a huge, huge thing for me. It's too easy without evaluation to get into judging myself, judging somebody else, judging a situation. One of the things, becoming more process oriented. I use real versus reality a lot. I look and say, okay, is this story? Am I in my own story? Am I in somebody else's story? Is what's going on real? Can I accept just what is? Acceptance is another one that is a really big part of my process, just to accept what is and accept the way that what is makes me feel sometimes. I can feel very sad. I can feel frustrated. I can feel all these things about what is, and that's real. I don't need to stay there. I don't need to live in them, because the other one that I love is the power of choice. I can choose which emotions, which feelings I sit down and have tea with. Who do I spend my time with at the table? Can I move forward? Do I find a place of action and movement in all of the things? So these are things that really have been life-changing for me. Shannon put in the chat, externalizing things has become a vital part of my process. It's a new layer of knowing myself and what I need to find clarity, and then move on to take an action.
Yep.
So I totally agree and harmonize with that. One thing that occurred to me when I was listening to Leslie, his process depending on things that are outside of his control. There's a difference between depending on something that's outside of your control and leveraging a resource for something where it's just not your strength. And including a resource to help you do something in an area where you're not strong, knowing when to ask for help is actually part of a very effective process. So using his son does not make him or his business out of control. Using his son actually helps him build and move forward in his business, and is a very large part of that. You don't control someone else, you only control yourself. But his process has alignment with his son, and that's part of what allows him to move forward with that. Dependent on things outside of your control, to me, sounds more like depending on things that you may or may not have alignment with. Blair, could you clarify that at all?
I'm not sure what you wanted clarity on, if you could.
Yeah, the process, Tim asked the question, is your process dependent on things outside of your control? And then Leslie was talking about using his son.
Yeah,
but that sounds like part of a very effective process in
I
leveraging
concur.
somebody else's strengths in an area where you're not strong.
Yes,
So
of course.
what does it look like? I'm trying to think of a process that would be dependent on something outside of a person's control. And I'm
No,
just not.
anytime it's beyond yourself, it's technically beyond your control. And
Okay.
the only thing that I would say is it beyond your ability to influence? And so
Okay.
I just had a call from a person that is interested in getting some coming back into the mind model sphere a little bit more actively, but she's looking for figuring out how she can support me as well. I am not good in social media. She's very good in social media. So, you know, that is beyond my ability. I've looked at it. I'm looking at it again today, just recognizing where my gaps are, and they're numerous in that area. However, she's built followings before there. So let's see. Maybe we can partner up. Maybe I can help her with mind models, and she can help me with my TikTok and Instagram stuff. So maybe that's a possibility. So I don't have control, but I have influence. She doesn't have control, and she wants me to influence her in the area of mind models and how she thinks. So, and remind her and support her. And vice versa. I need help, a ton of help in that area as well. So, when we keep control and influence paired effectively with process and content, she can do a process and has the content in one area, and I have process and the content in another area, and we can share. And it's very, very mutual.
Well, it sounds like you've built a co-process.
Yep.
So
Yep.
your part
Mhm.
and then her part that works together. So
Yep.
like Tim and I have processes in our relationship and, our business things that we do. He has different roles and responsibilities that he has his own processes for, and so do I. But then together we have certain things that we work together on. So we have his, hers, and our processes as far as how they flow together, but they are very clearly identified as far as who does what and what that looks like. And as you were talking, Patty, and Blair actually as well, one of the mind models that we haven't mentioned tonight that is, a key piece here that is actually going on in the background of pretty much everybody's frame of like how they think about or how they use different mind models is IBER. You guys have had an intention for something that you wanted, right? There's a result. There's something that you want to have or see differently. You've identified using the 3 E's, different components you've named and labeled, and you've identified behaviors, you've then executed on them and then evaluated. So when we're talking about, gaps and when we want to have something different to become more effective, IBER, I'm going to put this in the chat. Oh,
And
Blair just did. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, Blair's got it in there. I also wanted to mention just really quick for those of you like Cameron and some of you that are new. I know we've mentioned the 3 E's quite a few times tonight. And I did pop it in the chat just so you're aware. We do have Blair's free gift, but also the 3 E's is external versus internal, evaluation versus judgment, and effective versus ineffective. Those are what we lovingly call the 3 E's, and that's kind of the process. We basically, it's a compare and contrast between external versus internal, evaluation versus judgment, effective versus ineffective.
Right.
Asking yourself, am I being effective or ineffective? Am I evaluating or am I in judgment? And am I coming from a place of internal, like this is just opinion, my thoughts, or am I external evidence, noticing things outside myself that I can then, those hard evidences, so to speak, that I can really pull from instead of just my own opinion. And so that's kind of just wanted to throw that out there real quick. That's our 3 E's. And like I say, if you grab that free gift that was in the chat up above, it goes into more depth. Oh, it's in there again. Blair just popped it in there again. So just wanted to mention that really fast because it's been mentioned quite a few times tonight.
And as it relates to IBER, so again, Blair put it in there. I in IBER stands for intention. The B is behavior, something that you could actually do. The E is for evaluate. So evaluation, is it working? Is it not working? The result is the outcome that you're looking for. So often we have the I and the R. We got the bookends, right? The intention is I want to change and I want to see it to look like this result. Okay. But then the behavior and the evaluation in the middle is kind of where that gets lost. Christy, you were mentioning before, you were a master list maker, right? The intention is I'm going to get all this stuff done. And when I get done with all my list, I'm going to have this result. All these things are going to be handled. But the paralysis of analysis sometimes can come in on the behaviors, identification of what specific behaviors do I need to do? What are those top 3 things? And then the evaluation of that piece. And it comes up a lot when we're making plans, when we're taking historical things that have either worked or not worked, right? That evaluation piece, and we're building a process forward to make sure that we're working on building things into our process that we can actually behave to and externally verify and evaluate. and it works in so many different areas of our life, we tend to fall back into that generalization of just doing the thing versus getting specific and identifying which components are working, which ones might we need to test differently, to getting down into the specifics of the shift. Oh, and Blair just put in the correct order, or the effective order of
Okay.
the 3 E's. That was, I just got distracted. So as we're talking about processes, and Jane, you had a beautiful illustration last week. And, you know, thinking about processes, do they all have to be the same? Colloquially, we're just like, no, they don't. But how many times do we behave with our own sets of feelings about either our process being impacted or it not being done the way that we think it should be done, even though the outcome is essentially the same? Jane put it in the chat again. 3 + 6 = 9, and 4 + 5 = 9. 5 + 5, or 5 + 4 is 9. 1 + 8 is 9. Okay, there's
3 times 3 is 9.
3
There's
times
many
3 is
ways to get to 9. That is the important thing here. And so there's no one way to do anything, which is the great thing about the mind models, about each of us and our own individual processes, is there's many ways to get to a desired outcome or a desired result. And there's no one way. There's not a right way to use a judgment word or a wrong way to use a judgment word. It is just, is it working for you or is it not working for you? Is your process effective or ineffective? And one of the great things that I heard about what Leslie was sharing is it seems to be working for them. And what I heard in what he was sharing is even if there is a small hiccup, it sounds like his thought through an IBER is what I heard as he was going through that. He has the intention, behaviors that he can take with an evaluation. He's got a process to, it doesn't sound like it's been tested yet. Is that correct, Leslie? But you have something to fall back on if there is a hiccup there. You've already kind of thought through an IBER, so to speak.
Yes.
Have a backup process.
Yes, that is correct. I've thought through a couple of different things in this. It's just not time to deliver that message to our client.
Okay. But I love that you have that as a reserve, as something to test, because then you have the intention for when that time comes to get that desired result. You can take those behaviors and evaluate whether it works or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, determine, is it working? Is it not working? And then tweak if need be.
It's incredibly powerful, because for me, it's taking a lot of stress out of this issue.
Mm-hmm.
It could be very, very stressful. It could be very stressful.
Yeah. One of the things that I had written down, and I don't remember where but it's important to communicate effectively the desired outcome and or your process to find alignment, especially in an organization like you're talking about, Leslie, because common terms and language can help with it as well. However, if the completion of the task on time is more important than the path to completion, so your two separate parts, as long as the quality and the standards are met, then the needs, then that needs to be communicated. But it sounds like you've got that dialed in between you and your son, and that is effective. Did you have something, Christy?
Yeah, I've never raised my hand before, so I wanted to try that out. But but also I think it's important to use like the magic words, what might we do specifically now, because I have found also that Shane and we might have the same intentions and things with this desired results, but my when I'd like that done and his when he'd like that done are very different. So therefore that saves some frustration in us as well. And so I just wanted to throw that in, that I think that is important for our process also, is to identify and be specific on, then it's just there's no questions as far as, well, or any assumptions either, which Shane loves assumptions. But
It
anyway,
just comes back to kind of finding that alignment
yeah.
and those keywords and phrases and being, as you mentioned, specific in the message and the conversation that you have, so
Mhm.
that there is not that misalignment. And you're expecting it done now. He's thinking, I'll get to it and, the next little bit.
Well, and I love that Shane actually popped in the chat, build your own success formula. So within the success formula, who's the who's? What's the what?
Yep.
Right? What's the what? And what does the how look like? And who's doing what how? Okay, because Christy's got hers and Shane's got his, but then you're pairing. So you're coming together for that alignment of your process. What was that, Shane?
Well,
Well,
and
Also, it's great to know the who, or we know the mind model, right? We know that it's the who, what, how. We know the structure of the mind model, but it's to Becky, I think what she's driving at and to her point, like who owns what part of those pieces? Because if it's just a neat idea that's out there and we don't identify who the who is, what the what is, what the action plan is, and how to do that, it's basically, it's just like creating that list. It's just another thing that is not going to be taken action on.
What were you gonna say, Shane? You came off mute.
well, evidently the when where on the, if you tag that when where on the end of your success model to make that commitment, I guess Christie's is RFN. Mine's just whenever I get to it.
And determining on the task that may or may not be effective. So that's
I
where
don't know why there's a problem.
slightly different size of now. Love it. So as we're
I,
talking,
I loved you throwing in why when you know exactly what that does.
that was intentional.
I know, it was hilarious.
And isn't it fun with the tone and different things? Certainty, to my point, when it's an intentional why. You can tell by tone and those kinds of things when it's kind of fun.
So when we're talking about processes, again, a couple things to keep in mind is what we've already talked about. What processes do you have in place? What mind models are you utilizing to refine those so you can increase the effectiveness? And then, the other piece is like, what processes might you need to develop? If you're wanting a certain outcome, if there's certain things that aren't working or you have plans, what mind models might you need to employ, or what processes need to be built, and what resources might you need to complete yours or to make them more effective?
Mhm.
Every single person on this call today has started, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, to implement a new process into their life. Right? They're showing up on Tuesday nights to learn mind models. You guys have a result. You want to be more effective. You want to learn what these do. You've heard from friends, you've experienced them. You want depth, you want growth. Okay. So part of your process in growth is learning the mind models. And so when you think about those resources, what resources might you need to refine, complete, or build something that you're working for? Consider which mind models, again, that you're utilizing. And then on refinement, okay, we all have things that we can improve upon. And I love Blair's model with this. Identify what's working. There's always, using a distorter, there's always something that's working, even if the thing is that it's not working, so that you can find a new thing to figure out. Even that sometimes is a thing that works. And then what might you need to tweak and then test? So it's our 1-1-1 evaluation. I'm going to pop this into the chat because this is really where like innovation can happen, is identifying what we have, what's working about it or what's not, and making shift and changes, which is a very powerful thing when we think about what level of control and influence that allows us to have in our world. I think that we're at point of wrap.
Yeah. Did you have any other thoughts, Blair, on the discussion tonight and process from a subconscious to basically being more intentional,
Well,
aware of our individual processes?
yes and no. You guys have done a really good job of diving into that. So really well done. The distorter word of always. Occasionally, it's not a distorter word. Sometimes, always although usually a distorter word isn't. And in the example that you gave, Becky, whenever you do something, there is always something that you can take away. And that is you attempted. And that attempt, the only way that failure can occur in your life is if you don't get up and attempt again. Then you've failed. Then you've lost. But failure, there's a quote, I'm going to butcher it, that Sir Winston Churchill made during the Second World War. And he said, success is moving gracefully from one failure to the next without hesitation or delay. Because eventually you actually figure out what works and you move forward. But keep your enthusiasm up and keep going, because you can think it through and figure this stuff out and move forward. Anyway, that's the only thing that I wanted to do. And when I was sharing with you guys in coach training, there was the odds of success. 26 chances to stay stuck, 9 chances for success, and 1 chance for failure. That's what it is in life. And that 1 chance for failure is only when you don't get up. So you have to keep going, or you fail. If you lie down and quit, that's where failure happens. Okay, with that, I'm done. And maybe Tim, what did you have?
I was just going to say, I appreciate you sharing that, Blair. That was actually a light bulb moment for me. The always can be a distorter, but just like process, there's always a process.
You're right.
There is a process of doing something, whether we're aware of it, it's a subconscious habitual thing that we're unaware of, or we do nothing. There is a process to doing nothing. So
Bingo.
I love that, always is, I never thought about it like that, but always is not necessarily a distorter. There are certain things that are always.
I was watching a program before I came on here about AI and supercomputers, mostly quantum computing. And they've got 2 weird things that they're running these tests on. One of them in quantum computers is they're running calculations. And the really, really, really weird stuff that's going on there is they're getting correct answers for problems they haven't entered into the computer and hit run yet. And the computer is literally answering the question before it's asked. How is that even freaking possible? And they've tested it over and over again and found it's not a glitch. It is something in the quantum realm of how the universe operates. That's number one. Then they ran another one with death. Do we die upon death? Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed. Now, they ran this type of problem through a quantum computer. And the quantum computer is inferring directly that we don't die per se, we transition to something else, which is, and here I'm watching a physicist talking about light and energy and how ghosts work in the visible light spectrum. And that's a form of photons. Our light is massless energy. It's got no mass, but it's energy. But it exists. Okay, like there's like so many questions that are popping up that are just on the cusp of brand new science, but everything is moving in between science and religion, and all of these things are coming together. It's a hell of a time to be alive and see this stuff. That's all I can say. Anyway, I've got nothing more than those little trinkets to add to the conversation. But wow, hello, that's odd. That's weird. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
How processes become more and
Yeah.
more time go on.
Exactly. And we need stuff. I was going to say, we need shit like mind models to be able to just begin to cope with all of this vast change that's happening. Anyway.
And with that, I think we are in a place to transition to wrap up.
I
Patty.
agree.
I will hand it back to you, Patty.
Okay, Shannon put in the chat, Blair, she wonders if this is the quote you're thinking of by Winston Churchill. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the course to continue that counts.
No, but that's another quote of Churchill's I love. There's
I love that
yet
quote
another
too.
one.
I love that one. Okay, for the Brown Underground, Matt and Corley, Mike, it looks like Cameron took off. We do something called wrap up. Wrap up is where you contribute something that you took home that was of value from tonight's program. And then we ask to give a number from 1 to 10 on the value that you took home from this experience. So it's not rating me, it's not rating Tim and Becky, it's not rating, excuse me, Jackie's going to put hers in the chat. It's for you. It's what did you take home and what value was that? So I do know that Jane had to leave early and she put a 9-10 evaluation in the chat, and Jackie's going to put hers in the chat. Cameron took off. So from there, Brent, would you like to participate and wrap up and start us off?
Yeah. I would say taking the processes and from our subconscious and just identifying that label and being able to identify what those are and evaluate them for effectiveness, ineffectiveness, if they're working, not to refine them, to even come up with new ones. But using the mind models to bring that out to conscious side so we can use them and identify them and then adjust them.
Okay.
So I'd give tonight a 8.5 for me.
Okay, thanks, Brent. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Jackie is writing, and it looks like Matt and Carly took off. So, Leslie, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
Thank you. Very valuable again this evening. I'll give a 9. There is a couple things that I've highlighted here, and the rule of 3, breaking your big list. And yes, Christy, I get big lists too. But breaking it down to 3 that work, that are most important, evaluating the list. That stuck out for me. And in discussing the process, external and out of my control, in the discussion that ensued, and yes, certainly, Patty, I agree that Kevin is an incredible resource to me in running our business and how we've been able to mesh our talents together to move forward. He is invaluable. I guess the hardest part that cannot be controlled is how the software does the processing.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think I'll leave it at that. It can be painful.
Yes.
It can be painful, and
Software can definitely be painful.
And she
Totally
if you
relate.
recall the situation I had last summer, the whole
Yes.
thing was because the software did not work, period. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
it's,
really like Becky's word co-process, that you,
yes.
the business has formed a co-process. What Blair is exploring are co-processes. And I really like thinking of them in those terms. So thank you. Mike, do you have any desire or willingness to participate in the wrap-up tonight?
Yes, I do.
Oh, please share.
Yeah, so my number is an 8. I now have a better understanding of the process of identifying and labeling the various processes that I have developed over the years, and to start evaluating if they're effective or ineffective.
Okay. Well, Mike, we're very glad you joined us tonight. I hope that you'll be back.
Oh, definitely will be.
Great.
Cool.
Christy, would you like to share your wrap up with us tonight?
Of course. It is a 10 for me tonight. Just from Becky's questions last week to then having my day on Saturday and being able to basically pinpoint all of those questions that she had. Going from a crappy day to I really was just laughing by the time I'm like, okay, you can't stay here because you know better. And in all seriousness of how amazing and beneficial and effective and all of the things that mind models are, they're really fun too. To be able to just see them and like, oh my gosh, it just puts a different perspective on how you process things.
Certainly does. I agree that they are fun. It's fun to feel like you can see and understand things that not everybody does all the time. So that is definitely a lot of fun. So I need to Shane, I don't think we've heard from you tonight. Would you like to share with us your wrap up?
Absolutely. Matt he's a truck driver. He was loading soybean pellets, so he was loud in the truck, so he didn't feel like he would be. But anyway, neither here nor there. No, a 9, solid 9.5 for me. The process flow, when you said real versus reality, acceptnance. I was already writing power of choice. Then you said power of choice, so we're connected.
Great minds.
Pat myself on the back. The IBER, attention, behavior, evaluate, results is always awesome. And it's great that we can all have our own different success formula. Like it's not one model that just this is how it has to be. We can take what's in there. We can take what we've learned from Blair and from everyone here, and we can make our own process flow. And it's just my word of the month evidently is simple. Keep it simple.
Yes. My models actually are a great simplifier. So they take our problems and make them into situations that need resolving. So Jackie put her evaluation in the chat, an 8.5, good reminder to become more aware of feelings. I choose feelings that promote process and action. Thank you, Jackie. Excuse me. Shannon, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight? There you are.
I love these conversations about process because it trickles down and there's so much to it that it's really fascinating. I have always been somewhat aware that I'm a verbal processor and making things external is how I think. But I had a fantastic example of this last week that I got to see unfold over the past 7 days. It was really, really fun. I got to practice some RFQ with Brent last week. And even though I didn't actually do any of the things, not any, I think a couple of them, but like the specific resources that I came up with, going through talking about these specific situations I wanted to see action about in my life, I have made more progress on each and every one of those things in the past 7 days And it wasn't necessarily the specific resource that I came up with. I think I did one or two that I had written down, but mostly talking about them and bringing what was stuck in my mind out with another person. I think there's some benefit to externalizing with another human being. And that part of the process created like a resourceful flow that rippled out throughout the week in a really kind of unconsciously competent way that wove its way into just, oh, I have a few minutes. I could do this right now. And into the little parts of the day and parts of life that have been big chunks that have been stuck for a while. So it was a really fun thing to play with and to practice, because even though I know how to ask myself questions and I know how to make a process for myself, there's so much benefit in working that through out loud with another human being. So that was a really fun way to see just some of what we have been talking about in action the last week. I really loved also the idea, the conversation of your process being dependent on things outside of your control, flowing into creating co-processes and realizing, because the idea of something being outside of my control used to be really scary to me. Like I needed to be able to do everything and to understand everything to feel like I could take care of myself. But the idea not only of being resourceful, but also learning that asking for help is a part of an effective process, qualifying those people that you are asking help of, with the skills that we have. And then, how do you create really cool co-processes with different people to accomplish different things? Like it brings a new dimension to the work and to the thinking about things. That was really fun to talk about, just naming and labeling it that way. The other thing that I thought about that we didn't talk about tonight in terms of that stuck, overwhelmed feeling was the difference between opportunity and capacity. And I wanted to ask, is that a mind model or is that just something we talk about?
It is a mind model. Yep.
Okay, I couldn't remember specifically, like if that was one of the things, because it doesn't get talked about a ton, but that popped up into my mind when we were discussing that line of things. Sometimes we do need to take actions and do things and evaluate them. But I think sometimes evaluating our internal capacity for something and then choosing, there's a difference between being all or nothing. And if your capacity is limited to just say, hey, what do I have capacity for right now? And moving things along in those tiny incremental steps is really powerful also. So I wanted to throw that one into the bucket as well.
Thank you, Shannon.
By the way, the RFQ was designed not to get people to answers or solutions, but just to a resourceful state.
Yeah.
And that's what you were talking about. I mean, we come up with these resources that are quasi answers or solutions. And when I was doing my research, less than 50% of them people actually utilized.
Yeah.
And there you are. You're falling right into the right category, but you're way more resourceful because we're training your brain to get resourceful. By the way, everybody did really good RFQs, by the way. I still need people to, Tim, Becky, Patty, to be able to review them as well, but they are being reviewed. Just so that, and I've seen them all that you've submitted. I believe I've seen them.
There was a couple after I was done with one. They're like, geez, I thought you was going to tell me what I needed to do. And I said, nope, that's not what I was doing. I was helping you become resourceful. So I felt like that I did well to not tell them what to do, that I had them try and come up with ways of fixing it. But I just thought it was funny that when I'd asked them, I would like to do some coach testing with you. And then I'm like, come up with a problem and whatever. And then when we got through and then I had a face-to-face conversation, they're like, I thought you was really going to tell me what to do or what I need to do. And I'm like, nope, wasn't doing that.
Good job.
Yeah.
Really good job.
I love it.
So the only person I haven't heard from yet, and I want to check this out, Shane, have you submitted any videos?
Yeah, I sent you one.
Okay, well, I've got to track that down then.
And might not send to the right. I just sent to Blair at rewiring the mind.
That's where it's supposed to go. Scent was organizing my stuff, and it just didn't wind up in the right bucket. But she was dealing with family um, emergency, the loss of a grandfather. So anyway, so it may take a few days more.
Okay.
Okay.
Tim,
We got like
would you like
3 more days of class, and then we have like 8 weeks of support. So I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah, neither am I. So whatever. So I'll be going through the videos during the 8 weeks of support, by the way.
Okay, Tim, would you like to give us your wrap up?
Yes. Tonight was a 9 for me. It was actually a lot of fun. I enjoy, as was mentioned, I enjoy talking about process. Processes is a lot of fun, and it is a lot of fun hearing everybody's individual process as we've gone through this wrap up, as you talk through your individual process and how it's working for you, or what things you might improve upon. I just, it's such a fun discussion. And to what you were sharing just a moment ago, Shannon, it really just comes back to that awareness piece. Just being aware and noticing that you're aware is power. And that right there, and whether you have the capacity for it right now or not, that's, to evaluate. But really, there is just power in being aware of where you are and what you either can or don't do about it. The other thing that was really impactful for me, a light bulb moment, as I shared earlier, was what Blair shared about the always. I hadn't thought about it like that. And, with process, there is always process or not, but the not is a process. And there are other things. I mean, I could think of multiple my models and other things that are an always type situation. And I hadn't thought about it like that. So that was another light bulb moment for me. But it was a lot of fun tonight. I enjoyed what's a few of you. Shane, one of the things I wanted to mention is I really appreciate you leaning in and sharing a little bit about the Blair Dunkley experience, my models, and what you've learned. You leaning in there and getting a bit uncomfortable was awesome.
Yep. Agreed.
So, oh, my internet freeze.
You're almost back.
Okay. We got some crazy weather going on, so hopefully
No
that.
worries.
But yeah. Great night. Thank you.
Becky, would you like to share with us your wrap up?
9 as well for me, and I love it. Christy, he said it made him sweat a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. It's an effective response. Okay. Process is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's almost like a Tetris game, puzzling game. What process do I have in place? What pieces do I have? What can I do to make it more effective, to make it flow more effectively? It's definitely my happy place. And, the awareness that we're talking about of, when we start thinking from the lens of the things that I do are a process, and we start getting curious about what's working well and what we want refinement on, it's really cool what we can shift in our life. Tim can attest to this. I look at things and I'm doing it a certain way, and there's always like little pieces and I'm attempting to this works okay, but what I really want to see is, and then I'll start going into it and building something because it's efficient, right? It's effective. When I have things moving effectively, then I'm a much happier person. So again, 9 for me tonight. Appreciate everybody sharing, leaning in, and just being willing to really consider how we behave in our worlds and how we can use mind models to become more effective so that we can see the results that we're looking for, which is such a powerful thing.
Thank you. Blair, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
I had fun tonight just listening to you guys do it. I loved being able to sit back and hear the quality of stuff that you guys were like Patty, Tim, Becky, Shane jumping in there, doing stuff, moving things forward. Christy poking fun at her hubby like that and doing that whole thing. It's a blast and a half. So Leslie, we all could be of help and support. And yeah, it's I'm totally funsified. It's fun with this whole thing, seeing this growth here. So thank you so much. So yeah, total 9 with this. The quality's there, guys. So yeah, digging in, making stuff happen. It's huge. So well done.
I agree. So for me tonight, it was a 9. I really get excited about process, having spent so many years stuck without one, but or at least with an ineffective process, since the word always, we always have a process, and my process was keeping me stuck. Excuse me. So I gained so much hearing what works for everybody and being able to kind of pick things out that I might add to my own processes that are working for other people. Just seeing things from a different perspective is always really valuable. So with that, Becky, would you like to take us out?
Yes. All right, you guys. We appreciate you hanging out with us for the last 90 minutes. As a reminder, we are here every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. And if you know somebody that could benefit from mind models, please make sure that you invite them so they can join us next time. As a reminder, Blair has his study guide that is all historical and ongoing notes for the Blair Dunkley experience from episode 318 onward. So there's a lot of great stuff there, enhancement to your learning, being able to take a different look at things that we've talked about before. So please make sure you get your hands on that. Again, that's $25 a month or $300 a year. Definitely worth the investment for your learning and for your depth in study on how mind models can make a radical change and a significant effective change in your life. So again, we look forward to seeing you next week at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful evening wherever you're tuning in from, and we'll catch you next time. We'll see you guys.